Hi, everybody. My name is Marco Sors, and I'm talking for the Piedmont Heritage team, which is composed also by Maximilien and Andrea. And we choose to analyze the Guarini Dataset. So this is just a simple logo and our hashtag. And yes, these are the components of the team. There is Maximilien, who in real life is a programmer. He can introduce.
Yeah, I'm French, living currently in Zurich, and I'm a programmer since 10 years. And I've done a break to dive in big science and big data science. And then in this project I participate more on the data analysis and data part. So, Andrea?
I'm Andrea. I'm a student. I study in Turin, but I live near Biella. And I love code, to write code. And that's all.
Yep, for this project, we have kind of split the roles. Like Maximilien, he told he take care more about the data part. Andrea makes some nice exercise and evolutions with the JavaScript filters and applied to a geomap. And my part was I'm a front-end developer. My job is front-end development, and in this case I made the layout and just some metaphors, both for the project, both for the presentation. Oh, sorry. The dataset we analyzed, by the way, wasn't really a big dataset because it was. You can see the numbers aren't the typical one of a big data project, but yes, there was something interesting in this dataset because the CSI Piemonte with Andrea Muraca freed this dataset after I think 20 years they were collecting data but without sharing with the outside people, like with people. So the dataset is based on a regional law, which wants to take care and catalog all the historical locals that there are in Piedmont. And by the way, they have collected all the data that I don't want to read, but you can just see. The data were organized mainly on two CSV files, a bit messy up. Yeah, there was some duplication and a lot of empty fields, and because probably like the other project were made with the API integration, so the data you get are very predictable. In this case, are human entered and are more subjective. There wasn't a clear taxonomy, but Max will talk about in a deepest way about this. And there was also like 2,000 and more images of the places. We choose this project for three main reasons. Like the one was the first I mentioned, some ethic issues, because we think that this kind of data can be more valuable if you free them and you give them to people. Just because in this way the final value can be reached. It can be a kind of dialogue between the local administration and the population of the Piedmont or each region. So yes, the ethic of open data is we'd like that also more dataset will be open. The proactivity to show how just 3 people in not so many days, like 3-4 days, can transform something that is a pure data in something that is more appealing from a point of view and can interest also other people, maybe not so technical. And here comes the final point, because We think that you will see that the other projects are very big data and you need a very high level of knowledge, technical knowledge, to understand them. We decide to stop a level for the everyman, so like to make data bits that can be appreciated also from common people can understand. The tools we mainly used was Max used Python for data refining, like starting from the CSV, transform them to JSON, cleaning the field and the entries that we didn't need for what we want to represent. All the graphs are made with the D3 that we fall in love with the Fabio lessons. So it's a dynamic data-driven library for create SVG in the browser. The maps rely on D3 integration with the polymaps and CloudMade for a custom tile style. There is integration with the Google Street Map for you will see on the map each point you click, you see the street view of this local shop. And for the front end, we use HTML5 and CSS3. So yes, we try to use semantic and separate the markup from the logic and the style. Yes, in between there was JavaScript for filters, making D3 to dialogue with the real front end. Okay, here maybe I show a bit the sorry.
So yeah, here we will just show the first page of, just to see the data set, what we are working on.
Sorry, I am a bit confused because I'm not used to make public talk. And yeah, this is the first stage of our project. And as you can see, there is a map with all the points that represent a shop in Piedmont. You can have like a zoom, and we stop at this level just not to go too far and lose the focus. And there is like if you click on each point, you have a Google Street View of that point, that long point, and some details on the shop, the name, the category, the classification, which year it was born, and yes, the address. And there are two filters. One, you can filter the geographical part, so you are redirected to Biella, like where Andrea comes from, and you see it works like this. And then there is another filter for the typology category. So if you it show only the point that are bar, and this is the good job of Andrea. We will show you more about the visualization later. And now I leave the microphone to Max, who talk about the data part, data cleaning, and here you go.
Yeah, so as Marco said, that we got mainly two CSV file for two data sets. So we have objects and places. So it's more places have some objects. So that's the main two files, and we got also images related to these places and objects. So the dataset was not big, but we have a lot of columns. So how to extract meaningful information or reduce information to not to present these 50 columns that most of the time are empty, but we wanted to extract some information, kind of having a sum up of places or an object. So the first thing for places is not naturally the location. So the location was an address. So we naturally converted to a geolocation to put on the map, as we saw. So that was the first part, to the conversion of the thing. We also should get the name, and that was provided, so that was not a problem or issue. It's really. Then we get the category, the type, the typologia. That was a bit more tricky in sense. We saw the data set actually in differences, because the object got really a predefined typology. So we have a set of, I think 6 or 10 or more typology, but for the places it was more columns, really handwritten, so it was not so fixed. So, and there was a very huge list of categories. So we also try to have a super category or something more concise that could be more readable and more accessible than more than 100 categories. That was also the idea. And then the thing, it was also to having another dimension in this information set. It's about the dates. So we got date of creation, so of the building, of the places or the object. So this field was also, as I said, manually populated. Means there was no predefined value. So we can have a lot of different value meaning the same thing, or also the date sometimes is not very precise. We know only that, okay, it's starting in this 18th century or something like that. So it's also not precise. So that was a kind of issue, how to handle this kind of thing where it's not precise and maybe not accurate because of manual input. And then we also have the dates of renovation. In this case, it was really a good date, really a year. So it was here not a problem. So about the quality of the data. So first point, we got IDs. So that was a very good starting point, because to detect any duplicate and so on, that's the first thing to have. If not, we ought to create them. So that was a very good things to have, and so both for places and objects. So thanks to these IDs, we can we detected some duplicates easily, and understand why there is some duplicates. So for example, on the places, we have sometimes the same places duplicating just because they were renovating several times. So we have several lines because for each renovation. So that's this kind of things that we can detect thanks to the IDs, and to have a better understanding of why it's repeating, and hence and we can improve and say, okay, that's this kind of data that's repeating for this reason, that could be improved, and then we can, I think, have a better set of data set, and no need to clean. They can be more at the starting point, could be a better set of a better data set generated. as I said, also the columns were sometimes really a manual input, so sometimes totally understandable. When it's a description, it's normal, but sometimes for dates, that's more difficult. That could be a good candidate to have a predefined values. So I talk about the duplicate entries, so that's nice. And then, as I said, we got new columns, so we try to enrich the data with some geolocation and some simplification of type, or also try to get a better date of creation. So try to manually to come up with a kind of standard or predefined values for these fields. So that was but the job about this data cleaning, data analysis about this data, and we also look at the images, but we didn't use for the application, but there are still images, and thanks to the ID, they are nicely corresponding to the places. So that's also a good point. That's for the data analysis part. So now Andrea will talk about the technical part, the visualization part of the project. So come next here. Yes.
Okay. I will talk about the map. We used polymaps for drawing the map, and we use CloudMade from take the map image. And the advantage of use polymap, it's that it's simple, it's well documented, and it's relatively easy to use. And the advantage of polymaps is that you can select a style for your map. You can select the color. You can select a lot of personalizable things. I wrote all in JavaScript. In JavaScript, I wrote the menu for select the city, for select the types that there are on the city, and the script to apply these settings to the data visualized on the map. For visualize the various points on the map, I used D3 because D3 is with the D3 is very simple to do this kind of works, because D3 is a library oriented to work with the data. And what about the data? We don't use a database because we think that all the data is about 2,000 kilobytes, because we decide to download it all to the browser, to the user's browser, and visualize it. We don't load the CSV directly. We have a JSON that was made by the Maximilien works, and we use that JSON that is more simple to elaborate with JavaScript. I don't know if you note it, but I had some, I think, Peretti animation to the points that maybe later I can show you. And the last thing that I do with for the project is the integration with Google Street View. This is very simple because when we load the image, we only set the URL and it's a 3 line of code. We set the dimension, we set the location, but it's not necessary to use coordinates. We can use simply the address, and if we compose the URL that point to Google API, we can download directly the image from Google Street View. And is that image that appears on the tooltip on the higher on the higher left, no, right. And I think to present this project for my degree thesis, but I wanted to add something to this project because I only used JavaScript, but I learned a lot of the other things in this course at topics, and so I wanted to do something with Python. I should like to do the Python, the server side made by Python to implement a database, and maybe don't load all the database to this client browser, but using Ajax, send a request to the server and download the data dynamically. And possible technical expansion. I was thinking about to implement some social network like Foursquare, because Foursquare is a social network based on place where people can check in on the place and he earn a point. So, thinking about this, I have an idea. Why we can't do an application that user visit all the points that are showed in the maps, do a check-in with her smartphone, and earn point. Maybe the user can correct the data of the database. Maybe the user can add data to the database, and maybe can add photo, can add comments, this kind of data. And when the user visit, I don't know if all the points, but maybe a certain number of points, he can download a certification about his cultural trip on the Piedmont history local that are showed in this database. And I think that it could be a nice idea to add more information to this database. And I don't know if someone want to see some line of codes, but I don't want it to be boring, so I think that I can pass the microphone to Marco.
Thank you, Andrea. Now I think it's time to show a bit more the visualization we have made. So, as we told, we focus more on the visualization part. We wanted to tell a story with this historical data. So here you have another time the map that I think I showed you the main way it works. Then you have some parallax effect just to create a story, because considering that the data was not that big and we couldn't clean the object, data set that much, we say, okay, we can do something more emotional with this data to give the look and feel of the Piemonte. There are some Italian sentences and animation, just to divide the data. Here's a graph about the main categories of the local shops, like made with D3. So you see the most conservative locals in Piedmont are pharmacies. Sorry. Then there is a drugstore, cafeteria. So you can explore all the data set. Finding the end is the CONI, so the Comitato Olimpico Nazionale Italiano. Here you have a lot of. If it will become public, you can explore and make your consideration. And here another parallax, nice sentence from Nietzsche. And these are quite important. There are two temporal lines. The first is based on when the local shop was born, when the historical shop was born. And the difference between the dark gray and light gray is that in dark gray we have a 25 years period, and made in the first 20 years of 18th century or 19th century. And this is the question that Max was talking about. Like for some entries, we had only the century. We decided to put in a different style behind, just to say, okay, this is not so precise data, but we don't want just to throw away them. And yes, down you can see the number of entries for each period of time. This is the refurbishment part, the taxonomy changes. Like here we have only the last 30 years. We stopped at 2000 because the data were stopping in 2004, but the last years were just missing data. There was just 1 or 2 entries for each year. So for giving a symmetry reason, we stopped on 2000. And yes, you can see how it's more. There are more refurbishment in on the pair years. Like maybe it's a question of how the information are categorized, probably. Or yes, another mine camion. And these are a first insight about the object dataset that we're having 8,000 and more object fields in his entries, and the main categorization was made by 6 different kind of staff objects. So there are elementi di finitura external, furniture, tools and objects. Furniture fixed inside, and these maybe are, I don't know the translation of insegne or historical signals that are on the external part, and there are some that are not classified. So, and yes, this is how our 3-day storytelling about Piedmont heritage ends. And we have some if you want, yeah, the zoom, automatic zoom on the. Here, for example, we didn't mention, but if you click on the tab, you are redirected to another tab with the. You can have the Google Maps, so you can plan your trip to the point you are interested in, and just to. I think we are a bit long. And just to finish, yes, there are some nice to add things, like yes, to explore the attachment dataset of the object and the things, because we couldn't, we just scraped the surface. Maybe the integration with the social network, what Andrea was saying. made a responsive version for the web, like it can be from desktop, tablet, and also mobile, because at the moment the small framework we use is actually is responsive, but we don't go in very in depth with this. Maybe another idea is the English version, because it can be useful also for tourists to have this information, and we hope sooner or later this initial object will be developed and published for someone to take just this info. And yes, in the end there are just 2 ideas that maybe Max can explain, because they are okay.
Yeah, I wanted just to explain some ideas that unfortunately came late, not on Monday, but later, and that's most of the time we're starting a project and ID comes better. So my idea is actually it's stolen from one of presentation this week. That was from I Cool Hunt. They made a presentation, very nice presentation about open community to track trends in the world. So here's a kind of, because what we show currently it's a normal or not usual cultural portal for open data, but the point, and I think I discussed yesterday with Purya, and say, okay, that's great to have open data, to have a website to show this data, but nobody use it, or it's just so how to make people use this open data? That's the main problem, or the main question. So here's the idea. A bit same as this I Cool Hunters. So it's to, let's say, if everybody can do their own heritage, not only the official people, but what about anybody like me, for example. I stay 1 month in Torino. I took also some picture. I've seen very nice buildings, and I can also do my own heritage. And I think in this way we can maybe mix official data, open data, with user data, and then make more reactive community about that. So that's an idea, and maybe it could be possible, and that's kind of perspective for this project. Thanks a lot, and oh yeah, up. Yeah, thank you very much for the big dive, for the dataset, for Guarini, and happy night. Okay.